Hello. Did you listen to the other podcast?
Um. Oh no, not yet. You mean number 5? I mean, I listened to it, but
6.
I haven't. I already did. Yeah, I already did that, and I posted it, and I already did the YouTube video
Because
and
you said
post.
you liked it or something.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
The only thing I have left to do is the behind the scenes video for episode 5.
no, that's cool. So have you ever heard of spiritual bypassing?
Yes, but I think it's kind of an elusive idea. Kind of hard to explain. How would you explain it to people?
Well, I never really heard of it until probably about 3 years into my, what you call, in quotes, spiritual journey. And the way I would explain it is basically when you're using spiritual, when you're using your practice, you've got a really good way of explaining it.
Okay. So, okay. So if I was going to define spiritual
Okay,
bypass.
let's start again a minute and then you can
Yes.
remember your quote.
Okay.
So have you ever heard of spiritual bypassing? Do you know anything about it? Do you know what it is?
Actually, it took me a long time to grasp the idea, but if I were going to put it simply, I would say that it is using a spiritual practice to avoid and or disconnect. True growth is messy.
I love that. That's it. End the podcast. That's what it is.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think everyone who's on a spiritual path is guilty of it and doesn't realize it. It took me a long time to notice what things I was doing.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
like, I think a very common one is saying, "Well, I'm doing this to do some self care," but you're not actually like relaxing. You're just avoiding your worries.
Yeah, and very much we're not looking into what's causing us anger, what's causing these feelings and all that. We just want to avoid the feelings. And
Right.
it's nice to sit down and meditate. It's nice to go and sit on the beach. It's nice to do all these different things. And it is really relaxing and it's great.
Hmm.
But the problem is we then have to join real life.
Yeah.
And like I always think of the Mother Teresa quote when she says, it's okay being calm and loving and caring and compassionate around me. It's taking it back to your family.
Yeah.
And this is like the perfect thing where it comes down to the spiritual bypassing.
Yeah.
When you're in the company of really spiritual, calm people, but yet you go home and you're still et up, you're still annoyed, you're
Yeah.
still angry, and you still find things hard. And it's because you're using the spiritual thing to disconnect and to run
Yeah.
away from
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
facing it.
Yeah.
And like your quote says, true growth is facing it,
Oh,
using that
definitely.
spiritual practice to, hey, why am I feeling like this? Why am I
Yeah.
angry?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was definitely guilty of that. And what I did was I changed my whole process to where if I realize that something is bothering me or worrying me or concerning me or on my mind or what have you, I actually allow myself time to just feel whatever I'm feeling, just feel it and let it come. And then I say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to take actions forward.
Exactly. For ages, I was very much, I'm loving this feeling. I'm loving this new lease of life.
Yeah.
I, but after a while, things would get on top of me again.
Yeah.
It wasn't working. And, I would go from this really deep, loving person to like quite annoyed because, well, wait a minute, I'm doing all these things, but it's not working.
Right.
And and it really does come back down to like we all have shadows.
We do. Yes.
And unless we deal with the shadows, unless we face the shadows, someone's going to say something, we're going to be annoyed by it.
Hmm.
We're going to be triggered.
Yeah.
And the spiritual journey is not about no longer ever being triggered, no longer ever being mad. It's about
Right.
what we do with all these things.
Exactly. Exactly.
And this is where I even hear teachers that very much promising, you know, enlightenment and happiness and everything like that. Well, it can be like that sometimes, but it's not like that permanently.
Right.
And it's how do we deal with things when they keep going wrong? Because they will.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what this podcast is all about, right?
Well, exactly. What did I say on a couple of podcasts ago? I was saying about, or it might have been a conversation with you or somebody else, but I was saying, if only the universe had two buckets,
Mm-hmm.
and I mentioned this on my live actually today, and one bucket was all the bad crap, and
Oh,
one bucket
yeah.
was all the brilliant stuff.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And once the bucket was empty, you had no more bad.
Mm-hmm.
So like me and my broken neck, you with what happened to you with those guys, and all the other things that's happened to you in your life. You know, by now the bucket should be empty and we should have no more problems. So therefore we can meditate and just be happily ever after.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I remember you telling me that story. And honestly, I can't tell you how many times in my life I've been like, haven't I had enough? Haven't I had enough? Haven't I been through enough? Haven't I done enough? Haven't I tried hard enough?
Yeah. Why me? The little ego, the little me. What? It's not fair.
Come on.
Everybody else doesn't get this bad. What have I done to deserve? I must have had a terrible last life. I must have been some kind of mastermind criminal or something to deserve all this karma.
Right.
The reality is, like the Buddha said, life is suffering.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know, we get attached to things. We like nice things. We like a good life.
Mm-hmm.
And then we discover the spiritual journey and we discover the calmness and we discover the moving from the head to the heart. But if we don't deal with the people around us in the way of how we respond to them,
Yeah.
how we start to open our hearts to them,
Yeah.
it just becomes incredibly messy.
Yeah.
And this is why I think it was Rinpoche that said to a whole group of people when they walked in, and he said, those of you that haven't started the spiritual journey, go home. Don't start. You know, stay asleep.
Wow.
And he said, those of you that have started the spiritual journey, you better stay and finish it.
Yeah.
And it's true, because if we do spiritual bypass, if we do ignore our first half of life,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes really messy really, really quickly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we can even lose our identity and everything.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the dark night of the soul?
I have heard of that actually.
Do you know what it is?
No, please explain it.
Well, the way I see it, it can happen on the spiritual journey just before, or
Mhm.
well, any time really. But it's when you get to a stage in life where the ego completely gives up. You've tried everything. You might be on this spiritual journey and you're really, really working hard and all that. And eventually something happens that you've had enough of.
Yeah.
And at that point, everything just leaves. And it's like, who the hell am I? I don't exist. I feel nothing. You almost feel dead inside. And it's like the ultimate complete reboot.
Yeah.
And that's what can and probably will happen if you end up with this real, I don't know quite how to explain it. If
Almost
your
naive,
spiritual journey is
maybe.
about hugging trees,
Right, right. Almost naive idea of what it
yeah,
should be. Yeah.
you're meditating every night and you're just creating the love. You
Mm-hmm.
become the love and you become this fluffy person that just is compassionate and caring. And it's all for the right reasons, don't get me wrong. But at some point, the emotions will build up and they will hit you.
Yeah.
And you're least expecting it when you're on this spiritual journey, because you're doing the
Right.
meditation, you're
Yeah.
doing all the
Because
different things.
most people tend to think that if you're on a spiritual journey, you're trying to get to some end goal, some
Yeah.
perfect, happy state of mind. And when you get deep into it, you realize that's not what it is at all. It's hard work on yourself is what it is.
No, see, that's the genuine spiritual journey from where I see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the people that have the experience of Jack Cornver says it's from it's got about ecstasy to laundry. No,
Yeah.
mess that up. From first the ecstasy, then the laundry. Jack Cornver's got a book called First the Ecstasy, Then the Laundry. And you have this wonderful, amazing feeling. You have this wonderful experience.
Mm-hmm.
You have this connection with the earth, and it changes you forever.
Yeah.
And then the genuine hard work begins. You try to get back to there constantly.
Yeah.
Hard work begins because you've had this new insight.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
spiritual bypass, it kind of stays there.
Yeah.
They stay
Yeah.
in this bubble.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little more about different ways people do spiritual bypassing? Like, so they can recognize it.
Yeah, you're going to have to let me think there a bit more.
Because that's a hard one. It's a tough one.
It's not an easy question, actually.
No, it's not. I was reading some articles and I was just like, wow, that's
Yeah, a lot of the
not
articles are
clear.
really deep. And again, it's a new concept that it's on Wikipedia.
I knew. I didn't read that one.
Oh, that's loads on Wikipedia. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
is there? Hang on, I'm gonna pull it up.
Have you seen how much is on there?
I actually didn't read that one. Hang on. Wikipedia. Oh, nice. That's a nice definition.
But it's 2 lines. And that's it.
See, basic. Yeah, there's not. What the heck? So it is hard to explain. I can think of real people in my life that are kind of good examples.
Yeah, so can I.
Well, let's just like pressure from that direction. Only not mention the people. You should know we're doing it. Yeah. Well, one interesting thing I do recall reading was that it's a defense mechanism. It's a kind of more subtle, gentle defense mechanism, but it's a defense mechanism.
Right, bear that in mind a moment because I'm going back to what you just said. Well, it's a relatively new phase. It's relatively new. It didn't come in until the 1980s by
Right.
John Wellwood.
Yeah.
A Buddhist teacher and psychologist. And really, it's about they disconnect from feelings and they disconnect from the truth.
Yeah, and not just any feelings, but like unresolved feelings, negative feelings, old wounds, old wounds, hurts.
Yeah, that's really important. And they're the things that creep up on us all the time. And if we take what a definition of a shadow is, and it'll make more sense. A shadow is basically something that happened to you at some point in your life. You may not remember, you may not even be aware, hence it called a shadow.
Mm-hmm.
But something happens in our life now, and we're really caught off guard and triggered by it.
Yeah.
Well, we're triggered by something that happened to us years ago, and our subconscious mind recognizes the same situation.
Yeah.
And it puts us on guard. So spiritual bypassing is not dealing with those kind of things that happen. It's not facing those things.
Right. Actually, that kind of happened to me today. And I'd say the difference now is that I recognized what I was doing and I was like, oh, hey, this is a story I've heard before. Okay, I need to Yeah, but like I was having a discussion with a friend who was worried about my fish because he thought that I had moved out of the house and hadn't been back to feed the fish. And he's like, the fish is going to starve. And are you feeding the fish? And I'm just like, I got really pissed off. I got annoyed, but it wasn't about him or the fish. It was because a few years ago, my sister got really upset with me because she thought I wasn't feeding the dog. And in reality, he was sick and was losing weight because he was really sick and he was being taken care of. But she didn't sit down and discuss it with me. And it really hurt my feelings. I don't even talk to her anymore now. And like that brought that feeling back that, oh, you're judging me for something that you don't know what you're talking about. And like if I were spiritually bypassing, I might like, I wouldn't have noticed that. I wouldn't have recognized that. I wouldn't have been aware of it. Like I would have just been like, okay, well, I need to calm down and I'm just going to go meditate for 5 minutes and then the world's going to be all right again. And
Well, let's go a little deeper with that example,
yeah.
because I would say both of these occasions,
Mm-hmm.
there's something deeper there that's annoyed you on both of the occasions.
Probably. That's probably true.
And if you forget the actual animals involved and forget that, why would someone annoy you so much in saying that, especially a relative?
Yeah. I think, well, as far as that goes, like, I think why that bothered me so much was because a lot of my family has always been like super judgmental of me, and they don't really know me. They don't know me. They're not part of my life. Like, they have no right to judge me. And I
Yeah.
happen to think I'm doing pretty good. I happen
So,
to think I'm doing pretty good, and I'm a responsible person, and like, you know, I don't deserve that. So, and also because I personally don't like judgment. I don't judge people. I just like
so,
I'd say
so,
that's my
so that
biggest pet
would be
peeve.
part of the trigger.
Yeah.
But but the thing is, when someone says something to us, it's not always what they say. What your family said was, "We're worried about the animals. Have you made
Mhm.
sure you're doing this?" They care.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you heard was, "You're irresponsible and you don't care about your animals."
Well, I mean, I wouldn't put it like that. Like it was the way it was literally put was very accusatory. Like I wasn't like, and that's kind of the other side of that whole thing is that they jump to assumptions and criticize rather than like just ask, hey, what's wrong with the
Yeah.
dog?
But everybody has their own unique way of being based on the way they see life.
Right. And it's like
Um,
not my way.
no, and rightly so, they got a different life, different
Yep.
upbringing to you.
Yep.
But a spiritual bypasser wouldn't look into why you're triggered. A
Right.
spiritual bypasser would go, "Oh well, they just mean well, and everything will be okay, and
Mm-hmm.
just love them anyway." And
Yep.
yes, there's merit in that.
Yeah.
But but the actual spiritual journey is about understanding. It's about understanding our feelings, where they're coming from, why they're there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's about dealing with them. It's about understanding other people's feelings and having compassionate for them, not
Yeah.
just fluffy love,
Yeah.
unconditional love. Um, so you look into your past, you look into the issues you're having, rather
Yeah.
than just ignore them, rather than
Oh
just
yeah.
completely disconnect from them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because when I looked at it back then, I was like, it's more than just this too. Like I was feeling hurt because I felt like, well, why isn't my family more concerned about me, more concerned about my daughter? We were struggling with a lot of things at the time and they weren't there for us. And I was like, you're worried about my dog, but you're not worried about me.
And there's very often way more to these things than what's actually said.
Yes, exactly. And I'm
And
sure that goes way back.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would say it's got nothing to do with the animals now and you feeding them now.
Oh no.
I,
Uh-uh.
I would say it goes right back to probably when you're probably 3, 4, 5 years old,
Yeah.
possibly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can develop issues right back to like a week, 2 weeks old.
Yeah.
You know, we
Well,
could cry
yeah.
and then we could get shouted at, and then we're terrified of crying
Yeah. Oh,
in
yeah.
that
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, like those things don't go away just because you ignore them. If you don't
No.
deal with that, if you don't face that, you can't grow from it.
And this is why it's good to have a spiritual practice that enables you to look deeper and look deeper and look deeper.
Yes. Yes.
And you may not like what you find. It may really disturb you for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, all the liberation is in where the pain is.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, we're always looking somewhere nice for the nice feelings. But if you really want lasting nice feelings, if you really want a lasting spiritual journey, you have to look and pull apart and dissect the things that are triggering us, the things that are putting us off, the things that are knocking us off the path. We just simply cannot ignore them. And for the video viewers here, she's gone for a pee.
My
That was
doggies
quick.
were being naughty. They were getting in the garbage can.
Did you wash your hands? I'm kidding.
Oh, now they're barking. God.
I absolutely love the fact that you're sitting in that chair there. That is just an awesome image.
Yeah, it's so much better than sitting on the floor.
I know. For the video viewers, she's in her house. This is the house that we've been trying to get.
Yay!
A little more enthusiasm. You're no longer couch surfing. Come on.
I can't wait for Bella to come see it. Like, oh my gosh, I just can't wait to see
And your
her
daughter's
face
back at the end of the week.
at the end of the week. Yeah.
So the podcast is cancelled for 3 months. I'm kidding, everybody.
Yeah.
Not really. What I think might be nice actually is this podcast might be just a shorter one,
Okay.
which is cool to do a 20, 25-minute one. I'm just going to read a bit more.
Do you want to touch upon like religion?
Oh, you can say that to me.
Done.
Put your leg down. I'm joking. Right, don't go red. I'll talk about me not going red, by the way.
Why don't you tell us when in your life you have been spiritually bypassing? Like, how did you?
I'll say that again.
Why don't you tell us about some times in your life when you realized you were spiritually bypassing and how you were doing that?
See, I have a resistance to that question because I think, no, I never did it.
Oh, come on.
Of course I did. Of
Of
course
course
I
you did.
And I have to say it comes and goes.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because when everything's going really, really well, the meditations are going well and everything's smoothly, and I've not really got any problems in life, I don't really work so hard on looking at my shadows, looking at other things and all that. I don't spend all my life going, well, where can I see the darkness today?
Right. Yes.
So there is the other side of it. Although we're saying look in the darkness, you know, we're not saying literally surround yourself with the bad all the time.
I only do that in the moments when they present themselves to me, like,
Yeah.
and they will. Until you figure them out, they're going to keep showing up.
And that's really important. And the really interesting thing with, I'm aware that I haven't answered your question. I probably will shortly. It's really interesting when someone holds that mirror up to you, like what your family did about the animals. Really, they held a mirror up.
Yeah.
And it's a mirror because you were annoyed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why were you annoyed?
Mm.
And although we went into this, it's interesting because we get annoyed simply because we expect things of people.
Mm-hmm.
That's our problem, not them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're annoyed because they were expecting something of you and they were going by false truths.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting with the spiritual journey is we ignore the actual truth.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between personal and relative truth
Yeah.
and what's true.
Yeah. Which is like some kind of combination of your perspective and their perspective and the actual facts in the situation.
Yeah.
It's kind of a combination of all those things.
Nobody is 100% wrong,
Mm-mm.
even if it's just their relative truth.
Yeah.
And it's really important to remember that, even on the spiritual journey. But if you are spiritual bypassing, you might think that you have some kind of grandeur, you have some kind of access to the third eye, and that's the way you're seeing life
Yeah,
constantly.
I've heard that one.
Yeah, and it is there. You know, what is the third eye? It's wisdom.
Yeah.
It isn't closing your eyes and knowing someone's behind you.
No.
Well, that would be a pretty good skill to have. Humans have that skill, actually.
Yeah.
They've done a test recently, and humans do have the skill. They can detect about 75% certainty of when someone's behind us.
Hmm.
So it's interesting. But when they talk about the third eye, it's about being able to see clearly everything.
Right. Exactly.
And spiritual bypassing is picking what you want as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my truth. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we do in the first half of life. I like that person because he agrees with me.
Yeah.
He's an intelligent guy because, I believe the same thing as him. He's a good
Mm-hmm.
guy.
Yeah.
The spiritual journey is, well, they're not good or bad. They just agree or disagree, and that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but if you are bypassing, if you're not, you will hang around with people that agree with you, people that,
Oh yeah, that's probably really common. I mean, like, I just recently realized that I was cutting people out too quickly because there were for whatever reasons, maybe they were super drama, or maybe they were really challenging, or whatever it was, and I realized, I'm taking the easy road out by cutting them out of my life. That's not the right thing to do. I need to challenge myself to learn to deal with them.
that's a huge one, and I hear it all
Yeah,
the time.
yeah, that's what I got out of the last couple months, like,
Now, then,
big one.
there is certain people that you can give trust to again and again and again. They'll break it. At some point, you've got to say, "Hey, get out of my life."
Yeah, but that's different than learning to love someone with
Yeah,
boundaries. Love someone with boundaries.
exactly. And sometimes you're at work and things like that, and you've got your work colleague. You cannot simply be passive aggressive, ignore them, cut them out of your life, and you're going to
Right.
have nothing to do with them. No,
Yeah.
find the common ground, find the reason why they're triggering you,
Mhm.
deal with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I don't mean going over and sorting them. They
yeah.
haven't got the issue. You have.
No, yeah, yeah,
Um, there was something else I thought about just before that. But yeah, that is good.
yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna have to write a song about that one.
Yeah.
It's time
But
for me to write a new song, so
I do see a lot of spiritual teachers that tell people to just get rid of all the negative people out of their lives. Also,
Okay.
another one is really common is put a bubble around you.
Mhm.
Get rid of the negativity.
Mhm.
Well, you cannot have positivity without negativity. So if you're going to always surround yourself with one side of the coin, the other side's right there too.
Well, and the other thing too is that, exposing yourself to challenging people is going to kind of almost desensitize you in a way. If you're putting a bubble around yourself and only letting the good stuff in, when something truly awful happens to you that you have no control over and you can't stop,
Yeah.
you're not going to know how to deal with it. You're not going to
Yeah.
know what to do.
So I know when I'm spiritual bypassing, actually.
Yeah.
And it's when things seem to be going okay, and I'm getting annoyed. I'm
Yeah.
getting annoyed by people when it's not them, it's me,
Yeah.
and things aren't going right. Now then, it's how I react in those things. I get
Yeah.
annoyed, the feeling comes up, and I react and I shout and I get annoyed, and then I go and
Yeah.
gossip and I have a go at people behind their backs and things like that. And I don't care what anybody says. You know, this might be my truth, and I might be wrong here, and it might be me projecting. However, I do feel that nobody is perfect,
No.
and 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 I just don't believe anybody that says no. I never gossip anymore. I never say anything wrong, and I never, you know, I'm always non-judgmental. I never judge anyone.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
we're human.
Exactly. I was just gonna say that. We're human beings. That's
So another perfect example. If you genuinely believe you never judge anybody and
hmm
you never ever do anything other than love people and all that, you're spiritual bypassing
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're not being realistic with yourself.
Yep. Yep.
Then yes, reduce it. Yes, become aware of it.
Yeah.
And yes, eventually the aim, I suppose, to get rid of it out of our lives, to
Yeah.
cause no more pain. But the other thing is to be complete, and that's to experience all feelings.
Right.
You know, how can we, surely by the end of your life, you want to have experienced everything. And to be complete, that means all the voices within you
Mm.
are healthy.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
using them in a healthy way. That
Yeah.
4-year-old voice that doesn't really care about people because it isn't developed yet is having that in life as an adult,
hmm
that you can use it when you need to say no to somebody
Right. Right.
and not become a mess because you feel guilty.
Right. Right.
But it's
I-
also having that loving, caring person that developed at the age of 30 or whatever through some bad times
mhm.
and being able to articulate and listen without the time. So it's experience all these different things and not just picking what you like.
Right.
It's like having the rose without the thorns. It just, you're missing
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Yep. Mm.
I got a really good article here that I'm trying to read. Psychology Today. I love the website.
Oh yeah, I read that one.
Oh, is that an article you read?
hmm
Oh, I got another idea, actually. It's no 10 o'clock. My £600 camera's broke. Um, I love you sat there. It's just like, it's just so cool. It's like, yeah. It's like I'm interviewing some kind of mistress or something.
So, do you think people who convince themselves that they are always happy and no matter what happens to them, nothing's ever wrong? How do you think those people are spiritually bypassing?
I personally feel that they believe they're happy and they
hmm
are happy. I'm
Yeah.
not
Oh,
saying they're
yeah.
not happy.
Right. No.
And I'm saying they pick people up. They really live in a happy way. But what I would say is be aware that you might be comfortable, you might have all the things you need in life to be happy. But because you're not really having a spiritual practice that has
hmm
any kind of foundations,
Yeah.
if anything goes wrong in life, you're going to really struggle.
Yeah.
Then you may not, you may disconnect, you may go the rest of your life completely disconnected from reality. And if you manage that and you're happy with it, be my guest. It really,
yeah.
but
I find that people that I know that are like that though, like things do bother them, things do anger them and piss them off, and it comes out in ways that I can see and they don't realize it.
I would agree with you there.
Yeah.
I would agree. And
Mostly
then,
judgmentalism.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking I'm judging them now as well.
Yeah.
But that's the reality. Even just doing this subject, we are judging another spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And one thing I will add is we're sitting here saying that our spiritual journey is the right one. Well, we're not saying that. We're just saying it's a spiritual
No.
journey. It seems to
And
be
I wouldn't
working.
say that we're trying to judge it as much as just be like, hey, this is part of the journey. Everyone does this. If you learn to recognize it, you can really grow.
Yeah. I don't think anybody ever, I think it would be rare for anybody on the spiritual journey not to do some kind of bypassing at some point.
Oh,
It,
yeah.
it'd be no different than somebody in the normal of life in
Hmm.
samsara, as Buddhism call it, the dream that you sleep for
Yeah.
so many years, that, drinking alcohol to avoid the evening,
Yeah.
to avoid life. And that's what they're trying to do they're trying to avoid the pain in some way, but they
Yeah.
don't recognize them avoiding the pain.
Right. Exactly.
And that's really important. They have no idea that they're convincing themselves to be a certain way
Hmm.
to avoid the other.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that happens the most early on in the journey.
Yeah.
Like I did that the most when I was first getting started.
And it's really important as well with the Four Noble Truths. The Buddha said, to be alive is to suffer. The
Yeah.
second noble
Yeah.
truth is attachment is suffering.
Yeah.
And attachment to not just spirit objects, attachment to everything, anything.
Ideas.
And then the third noble truth is there is relief from suffering. And the
Hmm.
fourth noble truth is a practice, a path, a spiritual path, meditation. But the problem is a lot of people have the pain of life,
Hmm.
and they treat the symptoms rather than go to the cause of it. So
Yeah.
spiritual bypassing would be like taking the painkillers for the headache
Yeah. That's a great analogy. Yeah.
rather than sorting the stress out that's causing the headache.
Yeah. Yeah.
And very often people will choose the spiritual path because their life has become so painful.
Yeah.
And they will convince themselves that everything is rosy and everything is perfect. And there's no end of books and everything like that will promise that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-mm.
But the reality is, the painkillers wear off and the headache comes back,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and you take more painkillers and you become so reliant on this practice of staying above what's real,
Yeah.
what's the truth.
Almost obsessively so.
Yeah. And at some point you'll fall. At some point the
Oh.
painkillers will not be there. They won't
Mm-hmm.
work.
Yeah.
And we often hear that of people that have been on painkillers, just keeping that analogy going, because I love it. I think it's brilliant. But at some point, you're taking so many painkillers that are not working anymore.
Yeah.
And that's the same with spiritual bypassing. At some
Yeah.
point, you're meditating more and more. You're doing all your practices, you're doing all your yogas, you're doing all your things. Unless you're actually dealing with the stuff that's triggering you
Mm-hmm.
underneath, because you've still been triggered, you're just pushing it away.
Yeah. Because all those practices, they're just tools. They're tools to help you.
Yeah.
They're not the end all, be all. They're just tools.
Yeah. And they're not magic.
Mm-mm.
Most of them are quite damn blunt, actually. Most, when it comes to actually re-engineering or rebooting our lives, most of the tools we got take ages to work. They're so subtle.
Mm-hmm.
But we've had 40, 50 years of doing it one way.
Yeah.
What, people think they're going to sit down for a couple of weeks and, close their eyes and
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
turn everything
I,
around? Yes, it
I,
improves life.
yeah, yeah.
But it
I've
isn't all going to flip around, turn a switch, and
no,
everything going to be rosy from then
I
on.
still have a ton to learn, a ton to learn. I just learned a huge lesson the last couple months. And you know what? Like I started my journey at least 8 years ago.
I'm no different. I still have a ton to learn, and everybody I know, from right up to the top of Roshi's Zen Masters, right down to the people at the very beginning, all the genuine on the spiritual journey know that the work will continue to the day they're gone,
Oh,
to the day they die.
absolutely. Yeah.
You will
Yeah.
never uncover everything. You will never realize all the truths. You will never, I don't want to say fix because it's not broken, but you'll never be able to finish the path because there is no finishing. It's the way of life.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I had a brilliant thought in the middle of that. It was a different thing, and I can't go back now. I'm trying to think. Um, I was reading it. So to wrap up today's podcast, what can we do about spiritual bypassing? What can we do if we recognize it within ourselves? And I think everybody has it a little bit. What can we do about it?
I think honestly, the best thing to do is in that moment when you realize what you're doing, just sit down, get out a pen and piece of paper, and just start digging deep and asking yourself, what about this situation is really bothering me, and try to figure it out.
Yeah.
Just journal.
Always ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the truth or is it my truth? Is this what's really going on?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I feeling like this? And that's a really powerful question, is why is this feeling arising?
Yeah, very.
And it's really important to stop and allow the answer to manifest,
Mm-hmm.
and don't just answer in our heads. And the other thing with spiritual bypassing, lastly, is it tends to be more knowledge based in our heads than it does our hearts.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so difficult to recognize it,
Yeah.
because it feels like it's in our heart, but it's our head ruling our heart. The ego is still
Mm-hmm.
the controller.
Yeah. It can be really hard to tell the difference sometimes.
Yeah.
Really hard.
So where can they find you?
Oh, they can find me at susansinspirationspace.com.
And they can find me on stephenwebb.com. And what are we talking about next week?
Oh. Oh, yes. Facing fears. Which I am very excited about. I have lots of great stories for this one.
I'm excited about it. I'm really looking forward to it. It's just when you said it, my mind just went, boom, gone. Facing fears. Well, it brilliantly leads us on from this week's podcast.
And honestly, the way I'd like to go with it is like building confidence by facing fears.
Yeah. Brilliantly for my live today when I was talking about tell your story.
Yeah, I missed half of it. Like my phone, if I try to use my phone, it like instantly drains and dies. I can only use it when it's plugged in, and
I got
it
feedback.
died
They said
on
it was
me.
my best live ever.
I'll have to go back and watch the rest.
But don't take their word for it. It probably wasn't.
Well, as long as you feel good about it.
So tell me, what's been up with you today?
Me?
You don't have to tell me. Of course you don't.
I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. Like,
is it just like a biorhythm that in anything in particular?
Oh no, I know exactly. It's a situation, and I didn't realize how much it was really bothering me until I realized that other situations were bothering me too much. I just don't know why it's bothering me yet.
Did you enjoy your camping?
I did, yeah. It was super awesome.
Ah, it's a nice smile, actually. Who did you go camping with then?
My friend.
Your friend? Yeah, I won't go into details. I don't need details. It's a real warm video you got there at the moment.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've got a bunch of lamps on. And they're like regular lamps. That one light I was using before had a bright white light in it for Bella's filming. This is cozier. I like it. And the walls are kind of a warm color too.
Yeah, it is nice there,
And
actually.
there's like nice natural light coming in.
Yeah, well, I got my camera down because I wanted to go and put my camera here, pointing into that other room, because it's all nice in there. Because I just didn't want. Yeah, I just wanted some other videos rather than different backgrounds, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, that's happened.
And I think this so far the sound seems a lot better here too, actually. So
Sounds perfect.
yeah.
Sounds perfect. You do go up and down quite a bit because if you don't talk right into your mic, it goes right
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. But I haven't been having the internet problems anymore. So
No,
because
it's pretty perfect there as well.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, my end's quite good as well. See, I would stop the recording, but I don't know if that stops it completely. Oh, I didn't know we could pause the recording.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, that would be handy.
It's a learning process.
And you know what the funniest thing is? Well, no, it's not that funny actually. But halfway through to doing the podcast tonight, I thought, oh, it'd be so handy just to be able to pause the recording.
Yeah.
This is, I'm going to share this with you. This is the editing of our podcast. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's the intro. That's you, the
Wow.
middle one,
Mm-hmm.
me, the bottom one, and that's both of us in the top one.
What program is that?
Adobe Audition.
Oh, okay.
So, first of all, it's lining it all up with all that. You can see all the little cuts.
Mm-hmm.
You do a lot of
Yeah, I
So
do.
instead of having like three in a row, I might
Yeah.
cut one out like there.
I try to change it up with different words, but that one just kind of comes naturally.
Yeah, no,
Because I don't
and
want to, talk over you. So I'm just like, that's quick.
there was a really cute and funny one that I shared with you the other day. I can't say. So I
Yeah.
even recognize in your thingies now. I go, that's a that there's a right there. So I know to cut some of them because if you cut them all, it becomes silly and unnatural.
Yeah.
Do you see how much I talk compared to you, lot?
Oh, yeah. Which one are you? Yellow?
I'm yellow. And there you spoke a bit. And then I got to cut myself out if I talk over you. And then there's your jingle at the end that fades in. This program's great because you can literally grab hold of that
Mm-hmm.
and do it however way you want to fade it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just brilliant. And also over here, I've got mine -10
Mm-hmm.
because yours is quieter than mine.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But if you look at yours, which is the real pain when you talk and when you look away, perfect example here, look. That's when you're talking, looking away a bit, and then you're
Mm-hmm.
right into the mic.
Oh, wow.
So I have to take that down by, I don't know, about 10 decibels, which is really inconvenient.
So I'm sorry. Well,
But you see mine where it's
one of
even.
these days I'll get a better microphone.
You see mine. No, it's not the microphone.
No,
It's purely because it's
one in my
so
head.
directional.
Mm.
And like there, you were talking not quite into the mic, and then you go into the mic. It's really. Um,
Yeah, I don't know that like I can solve that problem aside from getting like a condenser mic that's going to pick it up from no matter where I am.
yeah,
'Cause,
because the sound's perfect.
yeah, I just need a different kind of mic.
Um, yeah, if we both had Yetis, I think that would. Because that would, it's got a, and we put the gain on the same on both.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of. But it ain't the end of the world. I'm just showing you that's why it takes like nearly
No,
3 hours.
cool. Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, the video editing is not quite that complicated. I just have to watch every minute of it so I don't miss anything.
Do you know what? I would have always thought video editing was a lot harder, but it's not.
Mm-mm.
I
No.